You know, that's what I thought a great name for my podcast would be, Cup of Joe. But guess what? I think somebody has that. Or it's Morning Joe, Joe Scarborough. Yeah. Mm. But Joe Scarborough used to be a pretty rabid Republican, and now he's anti-Trump. You know how many people that formerly, okay, this is interesting. So it's amazing how many ex-employees, if you want to call them, a trail, a unmitigated stream of ex-employees out of the White House are telling us every red flag in the world, and they're all telling us it's a shit show in there. But anyway, I don't want to get started off too strong there with my cup of Joe. But look, are we back from the North Caucasus, Belgium, Turkey? This is amazing. You know, maybe we have such an incredible expanse, geographic spectrum here. We should start our own United Nations, like a real one, where we can actually get things done. What do you say we do that? What do you say we solve the world's problems right now? Love it. Anyways, are you in Canada? Yes, I am in Canada. For those who don't know, I actually am in, some people do know, I'm in a 2-week hotel quarantine in Toronto, Canada. And it is far more difficult than I thought it would be. I realize that we're social creatures, and having no human contact is really weird. You know, I mean, I think that I'm, I now I tell the jokes to myself, but it's not the same. I talk to myself, it's not the same. But I can see where you could slowly go crazy. And I haven't even hit the 1 week mark. Today's Tuesday. I think Thursday will be exactly 7 days. And here, I got to tell you something a little weird. So, yesterday, I get a phone call from someone in production, and they say, it has been reported that you have left the building. Whoa. Like, whoa. I mean, well, first of all, I did. I went downstairs to pick up my delivery because I can't buzz anybody in. I have a separate entrance, and it doesn't allow me to buzz anybody in, so they have to be able to bring stuff up, whatever. I did. I left the building for a couple seconds to grab my delivery, which was left there. But the fact that there's somebody spying on me, I find really weird and creepy. I just think it's creepy. And I know it's all, important to have this thing, but I'm doing everything. Not only doing it, I'm doing the voluntary testing on top of this through the state, through the government of Canada. I've already taken one test, came up negative. I think Thursday they come in, they take another vial, and then they do another vial after 14 days. I mean, I am probably safer than anybody out there right now, and yet I'm being treated like I'm a pariah. So somebody in this building is spying on me. I find that creepy. I can't move hotel rooms, I guess. It's a whole other thing. It is a big brother experience, correct? Lele Costa. So anyways, hi from Spain. Love your hair. Well, thank you. I wish my youngest son Fergus was here because his hair's a little funny. His hair's been short. It's a little cuckoo like mine. He's like a little mini me. Anyway, so I am just thinking that I'm going to answer some questions again, and then I might just riff on a few things, one of which is somebody spying on me. Okay? I'm typing something up so I can pull it up. Yeah, I think it's Okay. But now I just glanced at the front page and I know that my situation is not weird, that the outside world may in fact be more weird. What inspires you the most? Wow, that is a very big, vague question. Well, I'll tell you this. Art inspires me a lot. Also, anything that improves people's lives inspires me a lot. And I don't mean to be Pollyannish about that. Somebody just asked me about my son, Aiden. Thank you very much. And my son had the unfortunate experience of putting gas in a diesel. He works for this guy who is relatively wealthy, who's a hedge fund guy, and he just does little errands for him. And so he takes the Range Rover Defender to the gas station and actually fills it with gasoline. Well, a little bit of a mistake there. And he, I love him to death. My son is hilarious, and he calls me up, and he's always this is the way he goes, "Dad, I have bad news," and that's the way almost every conversation starts when he calls. Dad, he called me again this night. Dad, I have bad news. I lost my wallet. Okay, but 2 days ago it was, Dad, I have bad news. I put gas in a $100,000 car. Yeah, so we're working out. It's all about putting out fires, isn't it? I think that's what being a parent is, putting out fires. But he always is kind of amazed sometimes because I'll get mad at like something small and stupid, but I don't get mad at the big things as much because I see myself in him so much, and when he screws up, I can't exactly be mad because I'm like, oh, I've done the same thing. So, anyways, that's the way that works out. So let's see. Let's answer some questions here. There's a great bad advice group on Facebook that would have some suggestions on that. That actually sounds funny. Bad advice. Bad advice. That's actually good. And I haven't watched any movies yet. Thank you for asking me. I need to. I wrote down all those TV shows the other day that somebody had me do. By the way, I just want to say, guys, this is my only interaction each day. I'm actually, you guys are kind of keeping me sane. Just don't give me any really bad advice. I might actually follow it. Again, I'm lucky because the windows don't open all the way, so I can't jump out. Anyway, let's see. Am I a connoisseur of abstract art? Have you tried to paint? Can we see your paintings? I am not a connoisseur of anything because I'm not sure I like that word. And I don't even know what abstract art is per se because I like abstract art. However, I did paint something here yesterday. It was on my Instagram, so you probably won't recognize it, but it was White Sands National Park. And, I did this, and I was like, hey, that's pretty good. And then I compared it to the photo. I was like, it's not that good. But you know what? Who cares? Who cares? I'm in a hotel room for 14 days, and I'm not angry about it at all. So anyway, let's see what the next question is. What song are you working on? Was I working on the other day? It was a bunch of songs. My head is not clear on there. And yes, thank you for asking about fresh air. So I said to the lady at production, boy, it would be really nice to get some fresh air. And you would think they would have some way of doing that. I don't think they realize that, like, you can't get fresh air and oxygen and sunshine. And it's a little weird. I can't stick my head out the window. If I could just stick my head out the window, it might actually be better. And so I feel a little bit like even the Birdman of Alcatraz had like the little bird come in and go, and he would feed it, and they'd have a little connection with nature. I'm like behind a hermetically sealed window. I'm feeling sorry for myself. All right, I'm going to stop that. Do I have my dog with me in quarantine? No. I mean, if I had my dog, everything would be fine. I wouldn't even have a problem. And there's a dog park across the street. And I actually was thinking, what if I put up a sign, you know, hi, I'm a crazy person stuck in a hotel room across the street with nothing to do for 14 days. Would you like me to take care of your dog? And I don't know that I would get the response I wanted, because it is a little creepy. Like, oh, some guy has nothing to do and he wants to dog sit for free. Is my dog safe with him? But I did think that, because to be honest with you, like, a dog would go so far right now in helping me with my unraveling mind. So, anyways, let's see what's next. Do you have your script for C? Yeah, I do. I'm not allowed to talk about it. I can't talk about that. All that non-disclosure stuff. And it actually made me nervous that I even said that I was doing C, but I think I'm fine with that. Let's see. What do we have here? Can you do Rachel, Luttrell, and you in a live chat? I guess we could. You know what? I guess we could. We could do that. I'll figure that out. Maybe Hewlett and a few of us do it. Yes, dogs do make our heart better. Okay, what's Newman's reaction when he sees you from a distance? I'm going to tell you something. Newman sees me on FaceTime, and he just looks at me, and it's such a blank look, like I'm looking at a two-dimensional thing on somebody's cell phone that doesn't look anything like my owner, or go to hell, you've left me alone, and why did you abandon me? I can't figure out which one it is, but it's not gushing affection that I kind of wanted. So, God, people keep asking if I have a girlfriend. I mean, I am the ineligible bachelor. Who is going to date a guy in a hotel room for 14 days? I can't see you. Actually, great idea for a show. We'll call it The Bachelor, but it'd be the world's most ineligible bachelor. I think there's something there. Okay. How do you fit into this little box? Well, it's a good question. Somebody has a bigger smartass than I am. I love that. Does he recognize the voice? Newman does not recognize my voice on the phone. Some dogs can react and some dogs can't. He just doesn't. He doesn't. The whole digital thing is like, it's not piquing his sensory perceptions. So there's no way for me to like do that little connection, unfortunately. Somebody's telling me to do online dating. Oh, great. I could see that. Boy, this guy must have a lot of time on his hand. He's texted me 5,000 words today. Okay, let's see. What's next? Do I ever watch myself on TV? Well, I think that's a good question. The answer is no. I really don't. It's actually fascinating. I don't watch it. I don't want to. And part of the reason is because when I do something and I watch it, I feel like I'm going to be a little self-conscious about it. I'm going to be a little upset. It's not the way I did. They edited it a certain way and so forth, and I'm not entirely happy with the way it works. I do look at dailies sometimes, and I go through them. And then I do eventually get a hold of the material if I feel like it's worthy of being cut into a demo reel. But beyond that, I would say there are kind of two schools of actors. There are actors that really do watch everything they do. They invite friends over. Well, look at my episode. Look at this. And then there's those that are like us where we don't even mention it. When then somebody goes, "You didn't tell me you were on television last night." And I was like, "I know, because I didn't want to." Because my fear is that it could be so bad that I don't want anybody to know about it. I just have to get past that, right? Okay, let's see what's next. You guys ask really good questions. I love that. You guys are awesome, man. I love you. Okay, keep it together, Joe. Keep it together. Let's see what we have here. A lot of Atlantis stuff. Okay, maybe now is the time to write that novel. Okay, You are probably right. But God, that sounds like only slightly worse than being stuck in a hotel room for 14 days. Here's my problem, and maybe there's people out there that can relate to this. There are some people in the world that are so fantastically disciplined, um, and they can just schedule themselves, produce. And it's funny because Momo and I have been texting, and I said, and he's like, God, how you doing over there? You must be going crazy because I have space and you don't even have any. I was like, you're right. And I go, I realize that I'm not an adult. I'm just not an adult. What I am is an intensely restless child with ADD. And he was like, dude, that's what I am. Dead on. And I think there's some truth to maybe a lot of actors that we are a little bit ADD and restless. And it kind of precludes you from certain other professions. And then I'm looking back and I'm thinking they didn't have a diagnosis for ADD when I grew up. You were just, I think the diagnosis was you're a pain in the ass. And that was scientific enough for my parents. They were like, yeah, he's a pain in the ass. And so now we have this tolerance for this and we have ways of dealing with it. And I think things would have been very different had I been able to tackle that early, because my grades would go from really good to really bad to really good to really bad. And that's what made it even worse for me. They're like, you're capable of getting really good grades all the time. Why don't you? And I didn't really have a good answer for that, other than like I was bored and I just can't sit still. And then, so God bless the people that sit still. So maybe this is God's way of just putting me in a position saying, be still, Joe. Maybe by the end of 14 days, I will be very still and very enlightened. By the way, I did this once in a post, and somebody said that's the white supremacist signal. I just want to tell the white supremacists out there, that is not your symbol. You can't usurp a universal symbol that we have all used for years and make it some secret little dog whistle. And don't you have anything better to do? Like go into your room and go hate on things, but don't take our symbols. Okay? Anyways, let's see what's next. Breathe. Thank you. Thank you. Keep calm in quarantine. All right. Fingers up. Buddha on the mountain. Okay. What is my next question? Who is going to be the person to ask me that question? At least the question I want to answer. What is the thing that you're going to do when the quarantine is over? I think I'm going to run out of the hotel room. I'm going to find the first person and I'm going to grab him and hug him. That's probably a bad idea. Maybe I shouldn't do that. I better rethink that one. What was your first job? Okay, that's an interesting question. Okay. I have had a myriad of jobs. So I grew up in this like kind of farmy, ranchy kind of environment where there was a lot of outdoor work. And then I became weirdly motivated when I was a kid. And so some people are crazy when they're kids, and then they get more and more disciplined as life goes on. In some ways, I had the opposite arc, where I was actually pretty serious as a kid. I may not be able to sit still or do any of that, but I was motivated and I was ambitious. So I spent like the summers, I had internships. I melted my internships. I worked at Deanwood or Reynolds. I worked at Wells Fargo headquarters. And you're not going to believe this. It's kind of embarrassing considering the state of this party today. I worked as an intern at the Republican National Committee. Ugh. And I have a funny story to tell you about that. So somebody remind me. Then I worked for a U.S. Senator from Nevada. And then I worked as an advance man in the White House for George Bush Sr. briefly. And that's also a funny story.
And then I realized that I didn't like these people. And maybe it's because I didn't fit in. I don't know what it was. I tried not to draw attention to myself and be like in the background. And when you're an advanced man, you really have to be like invisible guy, because you're like, I didn't see the Secret Service and the advanced people. Why? Because they know how to make themselves like wallpaper. They wear this nondescript suit, they have a little thing in their ear, and you don't even notice them. And for some reason, I don't just disappear into the wall. So I was bringing maybe a little too much attention to myself inadvertently. So that didn't work out so well. But anyway, so when I worked at the Republican National Committee, they looked at me and they said, stick them in the basement. That's where I was, in the basement. Clearly, they did not think that much of me. So I'm down in the basement, and I want to tell you something. It's very interesting. This is the 1980s. Yes. And who works in the basement? All the gay guys. I'm telling you, there was a whole group of gay Republicans. And it was really interesting because you kind of like go, Republican Party, especially in the 80s, you're like, you're not that gay friendly. And why are there this group of gays? Well, there were like, they weren't the log cabin Republicans, but they were gay Republicans. And it was actually kind of grotesque that they would stick them in the basement. Look at, we're in the basement. There are no windows, and nobody comes down there to visit. So clearly, we were the group of people they didn't want people to see. So, anyways, I'm down there, and these guys are hilarious. They're making me laugh, and I'm just cracking up at the kind of cultural juxtaposition of everything. Anyways, back then they had a vaulted room. It was a very serious thing. It had a bunch of keys. You had to go through one door, and then you go through another like padded door. And inside this vault was a machine, and the machine had a shaped piece of wood that was in another vault. And you pull that out, and you put this piece of wood in the machine. And what does it do? It actually writes the president's and the vice president's signature. And it's real. And you can go like this, and you're like, oh, wow, that's real ink. The president signed that. Now, obviously, they have it under pretty secure things because there's not a lot of machines that can do that. And you can imagine the chaos that would ensue if somebody got a hold of that machine like me. So I'm pretty bored, right? I'm pretty bored. I'm not really enjoying things. So I decide I have White House stationery that I'm going to write some letters to my friends. Like, hey, I call my friend Chris. I'm like, hey, Chris, Nancy and I would love to have you at the ranch. We're going to smoke some big hookah bowls and get some serious chronic. We're going to get stoned out of our minds. And then I would like, please join us. And then I would have Ronald Reagan sign it. And they would go like that. Holy crap, Ronald Reagan signed that. Now, this was funny because I started writing letters to all my friends like, hey, I called you the evil empire, but you know what? Russia, you got some good vodka, and the girls are awfully pretty. And then I would send those to other friends. So I was writing these really irreverent letters, and they were getting signed by everybody. Well, you can see that it wouldn't end well, right? Yeah, somebody found out. So basically, they didn't know what to do with me because I was already in the bowels of hell. I couldn't go any lower. I'm at the bottom ring of Dante's hell. What is that, 7 or 8 rings? I don't know. But I'm already there. I can't go any further. They can't condemn me any further. So they just put up with me. And I have to say that it was a good experience, and I learned that I don't really fit in there. And I can't even imagine. Those guys are just... That party is... I don't even know about that party anymore. But anyways, so that was that experience. I've had many job experiences, and after I found out, after I worked briefly for George Bush Sr., and I have to say that was fascinating. And George Bush Sr. was a genuinely nice guy. The people that kind of were mid-level that worked there were not so nice. And I chalk that up to saying that Reagan was in office for 8 years. Then Bush Sr. came in. A lot of these people had been in the White House for 10 years. And you know what they say, power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Well, these people had experienced enough power and privilege for too many years, and it had gone to their heads. And they were incredible assholes. And we would go to places like, I don't know, a town that you go and say you go to Charlotte, North Carolina, Charlotte or something, and their attitude toward people, like, you're going to do this, this, and that, get the police to, it was just a bulldozing mentality. I didn't like it. So I said, you know what, I have to get out of here. So I decided that I was going to be a writer, and then I ended up working as a editorial assistant, because you don't just start work as a writer. And it was in New York at Interview Magazine, which was a really fascinating place to be, especially after you had been working for the most powerful people in the world. I'm now at a downtown, like, chic fashion type magazine that's like a cultural magazine founded by Andy Warhol. And everybody is screaming. That's all I remember. The guy I worked for, it was the art director, Tibor Kalman, who was actually became quite famous. I mean, he was famous. But everybody was screaming. What I realized is that the drama was part of what drove them. And they would scream and yell and deadlines here. And I just was blown away, because what was so creepy and spooky about the White House is that nobody ever raised their voice. Well, at least not the White House I worked at. And so that's what was really creepy about it, because they could, like, kill people by talking really kindly and stuff. God, that's too bad you haven't filed your taxes lately. That could be problematic for you. That's the way they would threaten you. So I was just not used to this. And I think they could read my I don't want to say disdain, but my lack of respect. So then I got fired. And I was really crushed, because then I was in New York City and I was like, what do I do? I just stepped off the mountain. I just went from the White House down to, like, nothing. And then I get fired from this magazine. And, in Tibor's, I'm going to say, he actually turned out to be a very good person. And I liked him a lot. And he passed away at a pretty early age. But what I realized is that I was this incongruous person who I was trying so hard to fit in and be constructive and be useful, but I just couldn't fit in. I would try to go places and not distract and not create attention. And I just was I was a misfit. I just didn't fit in, and it was obvious, and I drew attention to myself, and I think it just caused a lot of problems. So it was good to learn that. So I tell my boys that your first, 10 years out of college is going to be primarily learning what it is you don't want to do. And so, and that's valuable. Failing is valuable. So somebody just asked me, how did I get into acting? Well, it's funny you say that. So I'm now in an apartment in New York, and I'm like, how am I going to pay rent? And so I was living with my roommate from college, who still is probably my best friend. And we lived next door to an actor. And this guy was, like, good looking, really friendly, had a Harley Davidson, these pretty girls around. And I was like, I just said to him, I said, what do you do? He's like, hey, I'm an actor. And I was like, well, that's cool, but what does an actor do? He's like, act. And I said, I don't even understand that. What does that mean? I'm talking to somebody who never thought I'd be an actor. I didn't know anything about acting, and I really didn't know what they did. And I didn't have a negative opinion about him, but I didn't have a positive opinion either. So I basically, I said, well, what does that do? Well, he turned out that he primarily did commercials, and he did well. And he said, hey, you want to try it? You should try it. And I was like, well, it's funny you say that, because I'm actually kind of between jobs. And so I thought I'd try it. But then what I realized is I was terrified. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but, being in front of a group of people is not a natural thing for people. So I realized I was terrified of this. And I was told to put a monologue together and meet this agent. I went there, I met the agent, and I did the monologue, and there was like a long period of silence, and I thought to myself, this is just so awkward. I want to get out of here. And she looked at me and she's like, you have this quality. I can't quite describe it. You're untrained, you're green, you need to study, but there's some quality there, so you should pursue it. I was like, okay, all right. So then I go to the neighborhood playhouse in New York City. And the neighborhood playhouse is a famous acting school. And I'm in their summer program. And I can't really afford it, so I sell my watch to my roommate. And I'm like, who is just the loveliest guy in the world, because he doesn't have to buy my watch. But he buys my watch, and I'm like, I want to buy it back one day. And so with that money, I go to the neighborhood playhouse. Now, neighborhood playhouse is also a full-time school, so it's really difficult. It's supposed to like work at night and go to school in the day. They take acting very seriously, but not in a good way. Anyways, so I have this teacher, and the guy who founded it was Sanford Meisner, who is famous, and they take a no bullshit approach to all this. So literally tearing people apart. There's people from all over the country there, all over the world actually, and they have to put up a scene, and most of the time the teacher would be like, yeah, does your family have money? Because like if they do, you should be grateful, because you're never going to make it as an actor. I mean, you should really not do it. They were brutal, absolutely brutal. But in some ways, it was kind of genius, because, they don't want to send people on a trajectory thinking they can accomplish something that they can't accomplish. So it was really where the wheat is separated from the chaff, I guess. And I was just terrified, and I realized I didn't want to be an actor. I could care less. Here, you know what I'm doing? I'm doing this so I'm not shy. I'm doing this to just get over things. I'm doing this just to get it out of my system. So I think I'm going to like have a heart attack. Anyways, by the time comes for me to do this scene, I get up there and I'm thinking, well, how long does an ambulance take to get there when I have the heart attack? Will I die waiting for an ambulance? Anyways, I get up there and I don't remember what happened, but then the scene was over. And I couldn't believe it. I was like still standing. I was breathing. I was like, holy crap, I actually did this. I can't believe it. And that's it. That's all I cared. I was just like, this guy could tell me anything. It makes no difference. I survived. That's all I wanted to do. And he looks at me, and by the way, this is like the third week into school, and he's just torn everybody apart. And he goes, you're good. You can actually make this happen. And I actually don't remember even hearing him say that. And he said it again. I was like, what? Wait, like, what? Are you kidding me? Like that, and then all of a sudden he popped open this can of worms, perhaps, but all of a sudden I entertained something that I never thought I could entertain before, which was, in fact, acting. Okay. To get really pedantic about it, I would say the lesson I learned is do the thing that you're scared of. Well, if you do things that you're scared of in life, you're going to live an interesting life. You're going to go down pathways you never thought you could do. You're going to have courage that you never thought you could have. If you don't test yourself and push you into the areas that you're scared of, you're going to literally ossify. And I was like, wow, okay, I think I'm going to give this a shot. And I went to LA and I got lucky. So, and then I woke up like 20 years later and I said, wow, I guess I'm an actor. So I tell my kids that, but when I say do the thing you're not scared of, I have to distinguish to them that I'm not talking about them like, jumping off cliffs and so forth. I'm talking about like the inner battle, the things you're scared of inside, and how to work with fear. So that's what that is. So anyways, I I think I'm done with talking about my work, but let's talk about other people here. Okay. Well, I'm glad you like that story. I have so many more stories. And you know what? I think tomorrow when I do this again at the same time, I'm going to talk about where I grew up. Because I grew up with like a ton of animals. We had llamas, emus, peacocks, rheas, Scottish Highland cattle, Texas Longhorn. I mean, we had crazy animals. In our house, we had a skunk and a ferret, in addition to like 5 dogs. It was crazy. There's lots of good stories there, but I'll do that tomorrow. Let's see. Is this my lucky bandana? No, not really. This is just when somebody knocks on the door, do this. So that's what I do. Anyway, let's answer a few more questions. If you were president for a week, what executive orders would you enact? First, after I steal the entire treasury and steer it into my bank account. That's a complicated question, but I know what, here's what I do. If I were president, the first thing I would do is make a couple rules, not a bunch, so that the shit that's going on right now can't happen again. For example, you can't sit there in office while you're in office and make a bunch of money. You can't have your kids capitalizing on your position. That goes for Biden as much as it goes for Trump, but it goes for Trump a lot more. Okay? That is the Addams family of treachery and corruption, if you ask me. And so I would make a rule on that. Maybe it's the nepotism rule. I don't know. And then the other thing I would make a rule on is that we're having this issue where people are disproportionately represented in Washington. So I live in California. We have one representative for every 700,000 residents. Now, if I lived in Wyoming, it would be one representative for every 17,000 roughly. So they also have 2 U.S. senators. So you have U.S. senator for like every 300,000 people in Wyoming. And we have 1 U.S. senator for every 15 million people in California. So when you cut things apart, there are more red states than there are more blue states. Rural states tend to be red. And there are more of those because we have more rural areas than we do urban areas. But if you look at the population, we have more people that are Democrats than we do as Republicans. Now, what happens is when you go to Washington and you go to vote on things, you don't have the power that Wyoming has and Montana has per capita. You don't have that power. So what's really happening here, and I grew up in a rural place. I grew up, what was a red state. It's kind of vacillating right now, which is Nevada. And it is so lopsided. And so what you have is a minority of people running the country. And the majority of country is unhappy. They're feeling like they're not heard. And then another fascinating piece of data before it bores everybody. But here's a fascinating piece of data. And I told this because I have a lot of Republican friends. I consider it my act of charity to keep them as friends. My friends are very smart, so they can defend themselves very well, and they have their own reasons for being Republican, whatever. But they're under this idea that the Republicans are the job makers, the generators of business, the self-reliant, the American hero types, the self-reliant, go do it yourself type person. Well, that's true for them because they are kind of those people. But the unfortunate thing is the data is this. And when I told them this data, they all stopped in their tracks. They're like, well, I never heard that before. And it's amazing that the Democrats don't make this point. The blue states give a net $2.1 trillion to the U.S. Treasury. I may be wrong by a little margin. And the blue states give a net $2.1 trillion to the U.S. Treasury. The blue states absorb a $1.2 trillion in the Treasury. In other words, the blue states are supporting the red states. The red states would be insolvent if they didn't get money from Washington through the wealthier blue states. Now that's fine, because that is in fact the social contract. That's what we do. We pool our money together, we figure out what's right, and we figure out how to do things. I'm all down with that. But I think we have to keep in mind, when Trump talks about badly run states and cities, where McConnell says let New York go bankrupt. Now, Mitch McConnell's state, when he sends $1 into Washington, he gets $8 in return. He is the biggest welfare recipient in the country, his state. And yet he's talking about managing things and letting badly run states go bankrupt. Well, I would say that his state is not pulling its weight, if that's the way you want to go. Now, listen, I'm not saying that. Social contract, we all have to share things, we've got to pool resources, but let's just get real. So something's got to change here, and something's got to change that the majority of the city, a majority of the country, and it's becoming increasingly urbanized, is not getting its voice in Washington. You're going to have a problem. So that needs to be solved, and nobody's solving that problem. It's like kind of making me a little bit crazy. So that's what I want to do. And by the way, these are issues. By the way, I heard the podcast. These are issues I want to talk about in the podcast. There's people that know a lot more about this stuff than I do. But these things kind of like. So I would like to see something like that happen. Anyways, what do we have next? The conspiracy theories about the networks. Yes, they can be crappy. I agree. What advice would you? Oh no! Don't went away too fast. I apologize. I wanted to answer that question, but it disappeared too fast. So, how has your journey been since the major fires took in 2018? Well, thank you for asking. For those who don't know, my house burned down in the Woolsey fire, and I say it's simultaneously liberating and obliterating. And it's fine. You realize you have a lot of junk you don't need. A lot. On the other hand, you'll say to yourself, like, I had some great Western belt buckles that say, like, my dad had for me for, like, birthdays and stuff. I'd be like, oh, yeah, that belt buckle. I'm like, I don't have it. And so the heirlooms that I had were, like, like a shotgun that my grandfather had, and they're pretty macho Western kind of things I had, but they meant a lot to me. The belt buckles, the shotguns, the bamboo fly fishing rods, and then I had art and stuff. Now, what I have to train myself is to not think about it. Just not think about it. When it pops up in my head, I just go, not going there. Because 95% of the stuff you can live without. So that's how that went. And it's been a long journey. I have to say, the fire set me back, and I was just, I don't want to sound like I'm complaining, I was just getting my feet back on the ground this year. And it became abundantly aware to me around Christmas time, January. I was like, I got things lined up. This is going to be a good year financially, da-da-da-da-da-da. And then wham, pandemic hit. And boy, I don't know about you guys, and I'd actually love to hear how people are doing, but it's been pretty devastating for me, and I know that there's people out there much worse off. I'm in a business that requires close physical proximity to a fairly large group of people, like a sport and things like that. So it is not easy. It is complicated, and it's been devastating. So a lot of people can work from home, and God bless them. So I'm trying to figure that one out. Maybe I can do maybe I just green screen. Maybe I figure out they just send me a script and I green screen the role, and then they can just edit it in. Yeah, probably be just as good as anything else, I guess. Anyways, all right, let's go to the next question here. Let's see. Okay. What do you think about the next level of evolution for humankind? Oh, it's just a small question. No big deal. Well, have you read the book Sapiens? Because that's a really good book. I recommend anybody reading it. I think his name is Nova Yoe Haral. Oh, God, I got that name butchered that. Sapiens. It's a young Israeli guy. He's a friggin' genius. And he wrote a follow-up called Homo Deus. And Homo Deus talks about the future of mankind. Sapiens talks about the history of mankind. And he says some pretty interesting things. He thinks that all of our energy and focus is now going toward longevity, whether that's in health or medicine, or that is health, but well-being, health, spirituality, all these things. And then you have medicine that will, in fact, probably allow our children to easily live till they're 120 years old. And so longevity is going to be the new religion, so to speak. And that is going to come with its own set of problems, right? What happens when everybody lives too long? That gets expensive. So who knows whether this is going to work out or not. There's I don't remember, but maybe it's a Kurt Vonnegut book. Was it Welcome to the Monkey House or something like this, where people are encouraged to die? They're given like little bonus credits if they go in and euthanize themselves. Well, who knows? We may get there because we're going to have too many people. So, anyways, let's see. I should qualify. Let's see. What's the question? We've got statements here, and they're very funny. Good questions. Hola. Population control. Okay. If you hadn't been an actor, what job would you have wanted to do? Okay. I wanted to be an architect. And I wasn't very good at math. And my dad said that if I wasn't good at math, I couldn't be an architect. I think back then that was correct. Now, my dad also had an engineering degree. Like, he went to MIT. He was super good with that stuff. But had I grown up in today's environment, when they tested me, they would have given me a spatial reasoning part of my test. And the spatial reasoning I just took last year, just out of curiosity. And I couldn't believe it. I got 100% on the spatial reasoning exam. And apparently, I guess that's not that easy, but if you have spatial awareness and stuff, it's pretty easy. That spatial awareness is really good for somebody like an architect. So I could have been an architect also because software does a lot of the mathematical programming. So do I miss that call? No, whatever. It is what it is. I'm not sure that maybe I would have been a bad architect. But I do tell my kids, just because I have a huge ego and it's fragile, I tell them that I miss my calling and I should own a race car driver. I usually say that while I'm driving the car. That is something else that I actually probably would have done well in. Because, you put me in the seat of a car or a motorcycle, and, I might as well have blinders on. I could just, go. And I'm hyper-focused. So, that would have been good. What architectural styles do you like? I like a lot. That's a longer question that's going to, lose our audience. So I don't want to do that. Anyway, let's see here. Are you artistic in other ways, painting, etc.? I think I am. I'd like to say I am. I build things. I build furniture. I make these slab tables. Occasionally I paint. I do all that stuff. I like it. I like creating. Anything I can create with my hands. I'm in good shape. Somebody just asked a really good question and then it disappeared about who I look up to in history, but I lost the question. Can I say, oui, je parle français, mais je ne parle pas trop bien, mais j'ai oublié beaucoup de mes français. Okay, that's it. That's as much French as I'm going to speak right now. Best moments in life. My God, you guys ask questions that are so gigantic. I'll be talking forever. Do you think children develop critical thinking skills? No. In fact, I would say, here's what I'm going to say. We are missing our critical thinking skills on such a huge level right now. it's so interesting you ask that question, because if I were to peel the layers off, I say this: intelligence is the capacity to find primary causes. Okay, you can have very smart people who run around and chase symptoms, and they yell at symptoms and they say that's a problem, that's a problem. Really smart people find the causes. I may not be a big fan of Bill Gates, maybe as a person. I don't know him well. There's questionable things that you may have done in business, but I'll tell you one thing: the guy is smart as hell, and he's taking this charity and he's finding the primary cause to a lot of problems. For example, the biggest killer of children is in fact diarrhea. Now, you're not going to have a big black and white charity ball, the diarrhea ball. It's just not as cool as a feed the kids, is it? But feeding the kids is not. It's a symptom. It's not the cause of a lot of the problems. So he's going after things on a causal level. I think that's really interesting. So part of critical thinking skills is the ability to find primary causes. And it is my belief that our primary cause in the United States right now is our inability to find the primary cause of our problems, which I believe is not having a mutual set of facts. We now have decided you can have your facts, and I can have my facts. That's your data. It's my data. Kellyanne Conway coined it alternative facts. So you might not realize it, but wow, that is one of the most dangerous, crazy things I have ever heard in my life. And what a lunatic she is. Sorry, but you're not allowed to have alternative facts. Yes, you can have alternative facts in a jail cell and talk to yourself. Fine. But when you step on an airplane and you're hoping that it takes you from Los Angeles to New York, you're not saying to yourself, God, I hope those engineers, their alternative facts all came together and they decided that they agreed on how an engine worked. No. One set of facts. Data, science, truth, facts. There's such things. It's total bullshit that you can have your own facts. I'm so sick of this crap. So that comes down to critical thinking. And so if you get your news source, if you get your information from one type of news source, good luck for you. And that's your facts, but you're not connected to reality. So let's say 80% of the people today, I can't talk to them about politics because they do not believe that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. So what am I going to do? Sorry. It's what I'm trying to be on the uh,
Mm-hmm.
I want